I am currently taking a walk break on this run walk training run. I'm currently about 5 miles from the car and I have no cell service. In the episode I watched on YouTube last night, it was about a young girl who got lost in the Grand Canyon. She was hiking all alone, and the show is called I Shouldn't Be Alive, I believe. And she was lost there for like 20 days, sometimes just wishing she would die. So what came to my mind on this run is, boy, of all the risky times I've had out on these trails, I'm lucky to not have been on that show. So today what I'm going to talk about, instead of calling it trail talk, I'm going to call it Ramblin' Fever in honor of the late great Merle Haggard, because on a trail I just start thinking about things and I start rambling about them. And today I'm going to ramble about safety for seniors or anybody, whatever age, but safety for the solo hiker, trail runner. What are some of the things you should have to avoid being on I Shouldn't Be Alive? We'll talk about that in this Ramblin' Fever. Well, because I meandered down things like this ankle biter breaker, things like that, because I meandered down those, that's one of the reasons I should think about solo trail running and hiking safety. The first thing that comes to mind, or the first thing that should be done, let me slow down here. First thing that should be done if you're going to go out solo hiking, running, trail running, getting in the great outdoors all alone, the first thing is you should let someone know where you're going and when you approximately expect to come back. That's important. Next thing is you should consider, what do I need to take with me? And a lot of the things I'm going to talk about are very optional, are just in case type of things, and some are just almost mandatory. One thing, you got to have fluid. I've got 2 water bottles on my chest here today filled with fluid. If it's going to be any time at all out there and it's warm at all, you're going to need fluid. Another thing, I don't know if we can see it if I go back up behind me, we'll see how that works. In my backpack I have collapsible trekking poles. Now, will I use them today? Maybe not. Only if I need them because my knees hurt, or if you get injured, it's like having a crutch to help you get out. So trekking poles can be a very handy thing to have in your backpack. Speaking of backpack, a backpack's a great idea, because a lot of the things that I'm going to talk about can be carried in your backpack. You won't know any different. And they can do a couple things for you. They can either make your adventure in the outdoors more comfortable, but it certainly can make it safer if something should happen. So a backpack. And what I'm going to talk about as I go down the trail here is, what are some of the things that should be in that backpack? And one I got in right up in the top part of my pack is I got a little plastic bag with toilet paper, cotton ball, and a lighter. Now, everybody knows what the toilet paper is for. That's to make it a lot more convenient than using dried up leaves. However, what's in there is a way of starting fires. I've got toilet paper, a cotton ball is highly flammable, and a lighter. In case you got stuck overnight, a fire would be a lot better than freezing your you-know-what's off. So, a little baggie with toilet paper, cotton ball, and a small lighter. Doesn't cost you much in weight at all. Another thing that comes to my mind while I'm rambling is, and I don't have one in here and I really should, but heck, I will have, because I'm training for the Black Hills Ultra and the Pikes Peak Marathon Ascent, and I will be out here on the trail as usual a lot alone, and I'm on borrowed time, so I've got to have a way to take care of myself the what if comes up. I got to have some what ifs. So another thing that I'd have is one of them little bitty survival blankets that weighs almost zero and costs almost zero. It ought to be in there. Shame on me. So there's something you should have. That'd be shelter. It'd keep you, the rain come down, you could cover yourself with it. So that would be something that I'm neglecting. Also, another thing is, I mentioned in the beginning of this, I'm out of cell service. And I have no way of communicating if I should fall down and break my leg. No way. Now, I have a perfectly good device sitting at home called the Garmin InReach. And that has an SOS system that can find exactly where you're at. Also, I can send a satellite text home to my wife with that. Why don't I have it? Because I've neglected it. I let my subscription run out, and I'm going to get that fixed up when I get home. But a Garmin InReach would be a great idea if you're going to be out alone a lot, especially if you're kind of like me, and your body and your bones are over 70 years old, but your mind is 40. You got to remember, these bones will break easier now than they did when you were 35. So if you do break a bone or fall down, no big deal, but boy, it'd be a miserable time if they don't know where you are. So an InReach or stay within cell service and bring a phone would be a good way to communicate with whoever's back home. What else? Let's see. Oh, I'm going to have to pick this up here a little bit down the trail because the wind's coming up. Before I go any further with this video, I want to just take a time out and explain that I don't profess to be an expert. I'm just an old timer that's been around, and I'm just talking about the things that come to my mind today about safety and the great outdoors, because that young girl's dilemma stuck in my brain, and I thought, gosh, if one person picks up one thing that makes it so they don't end up on that show, then this video was a home run. Now, if you're watching, there's lots of people that know a lot more about backpacking, hiking, trail running, safety than I do. And it should be great if you'd add any information that you can share with us all in the comments. We can all learn, and if one person comes home safe because of your comments, that'd be terrific. So if you're watching this far, and for that we thank you. And gosh, if you have watched this far, you're kind of one of my type of people, and it'd be super if you'd give me that thumbs up by ringing the bell and subscribing. And who knows, maybe I'll continue this sort of content if I get enough feedback on it. And shoot, if you're a real beginner and you got a question for me, put it in the comments. I'll be sure to answer it. So let's continue with this. Here we go. Another thing that I have in my pack almost always is a real light brake, hooded, kind of a nylon windbreaker, because in emergency, that little baby is worth it gold. If you were cold, hurt, that little windbreaker will give you some shelter. And I also have, along with that, a not lightweight, nylon long sleeve pullover. I don't know if it's nylon, but a long sleeve pullover that will wick water. And I'm often out running, so I'm sweaty. If I got in trouble, I don't want to ditch that sweaty clothes and put on dry clothes. That's for sure. So I've got 2 items of dry clothes in my backpack. Just a thought, if you're out there, if you just get sick of your sweaty clothes, you could switch. Or if the weather changes, you could switch. If you get chilled, it changes fast here in South Dakota. So if it gets, which it's not going to today, it's going to be like 80 right now. But if it changed fast on me, a thunderstorm came in, I got an additional layers of clothing. So that's a great idea for safety. If not safety, for comfort, for sure. What else is back in there? Heck, it's 80 degrees out in the summer, and I've got a stocking cap and an extra buff in there, just in case. Because you lose a lot of your heat through your head, and if you're injured, you don't want to lose any more heat. You can put on a stocking cap, and if nothing else, give yourself some comfort. Wow, this is a nice area. Another thing that comes to mind as I'm rambling away is food. Even if you're going out for just an hour and you don't plan on being hungry, it doesn't take much to carry a little food just in case. What I carry, because I'm training for an ultra marathon, I carry a protein bar. I got some figs in my pocket. I've got some of those goo things that are full of carbs. But if a person's just day hiking, heck, bring an apple with you. You'll appreciate it if you get lost. And speaking of getting lost, I got a tiny little compass hooked to the back of this backpack. A small compass weighs nothing, but it would sure help out if I didn't know what direction I was going and I needed a little bit of guidance. So a compass is a good safety feature. And I know that nowadays, there's all trails and all kinds of electronics that'll do it for you. The thing about even if you have cell service and being able to call home for help or using the electronics to guide you, the thing about that is if you lose or break your phone, you got nothing. Got to plan for the what if once in a while. So having a tiny little compass might be worth it. And I'm guilty of not having this because I go to the same places all the time. But to have a map of the area you're going to, if you're unfamiliar with it. Like that poor girl in the Grand Canyon, somehow she got lost. And she lived there for days and days and days. I think it was like 20 days. Amazing she is alive. But boy, it would have been a lot better if she had had a way to figure a way out or to communicate back home, blah, blah, blah. That's me rambling again. But as I jog down these trails, my mind just rambles. So there's another safety feature. Bring a compass. I pulled over here to get out of the wind and throw a couple of my last parting thoughts on this rambling fever on solo hiking, jogging, trail running, alone safety. Another thing to consider is some sort of first aid. I often take a roll of tape. You can do a lot with a roll of tape. I used to, when I'd go through hiking, I'd have duct tape or some sort of tape wrapped around my trekking pole, so I always have it with me and not forget it. Sometimes I throw it in this backpack, sometimes I forget. But a roll of tape can be, in an emergency situation, can be very handy. If you want to see and learn how handy a roll of duct tape can be, just watch the Red Green show. He'll give you some advice there. So that I'll maybe leave a link to a Red Green if you don't know who he is. Red Green's very hilarious. Anyway, duct tape or any tape is very helpful. Can be used for many things in an emergency situation or just for convenience. The last thing that comes to my mind is when we're out here, we're not in our environment, we're in the wild animals environment. And there's some animals that probably are less than safe, like mountain lions. There's plenty of mountain lions in this area. I never see them, but they're here and I need to be aware of that. Rattlesnakes, there could be one here. Never see them, but you need to be aware of that. So things like moose, bear, mountain lions, rattlesnakes, and so forth, this is their environment. Be aware of what to do if you encounter them. So that's a knowledge thing that you take with you before you go. So there's I think my last two thoughts. I'm going to head up this 1.25 mile long steep uphill, and I'm sure something else will come to my mind shortly. Here we go. Up that hill. Of course, another thing came to my mind. It's never over till it's over with me. On the topic of first aid, it just hit me. Maybe the most important first aid is having a way to communicate to get help if you need help. instead of trying to carry a giant first aid kit. Maybe the basics, but a way to communicate to get help will get you all kinds of first aid. Whereas if you don't have a way of communicating, you got troubles probably. With that being said, I better continue up this big hill. And if you stay to the end, I'll let you know if I lived through this. Oh gosh, I've been out here a while. It's but remember, it's out there, and let's go get it. I guess I'll slow down here to take a minute to summarize all the stuff I've been rambling about safety in the great outdoors. I'll start by saying this. When we all were in grade school, it wasn't a very good sign to get an F. But when you're going to the great outdoors, there's 5 F's that you should consider having. And I've always preached this. The 5 F's are, the first one is of course fluid, because you don't live very long without fluid or a way to filter water. Second F is food. You can live a long time without food, but it's more fun with it. So those are the first 2 F's. Another F that I always preach about backpacking, trail running, hiking, whatever in the outdoors. The third F is a fort, in case you need it. A fort being shelter from the elements. Shelter can be a tarp, a tent, anything, but a way of having shelter is the third F. The fourth F is first aid, and that can come in several different forms. Like I said before, it can even be a way to communicate back home to let people know where you are and that you're in trouble. So that's the 4 F's, 4 of the 5 F's. And the fifth, that isn't always needed, but it is needed sometimes, and really in an emergency situation it'd be helpful for signaling. And the 5th F that you shouldn't leave home without is a method of making fire. So those are the fluid, food, fort, first aid, and fire. Those are my 5 F's that you don't want to leave home without it on an extended adventure into the great outdoors. And the last F that I'll throw in here as a 6th and bonus F is you should leave with a fantastically good attitude. That's my 5 F's and 1 bonus F for everyone. Now, if you watch this long to see if I lived, well, I probably will. I got about 1.5 miles to go, and it's like I always say, is I almost never die.